morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Conversations with Rudy Rivera. Today, I am thrilled to have Ghada Audi, who is a colleague of mine from the ACC that we've known for quite some time. We've known each other for quite some time, haven't seen each other since the pandemic. Ghada basically has a grand opening of her she's always been an arbitrator, but her arbitration practice in California. Ghada, you were a GC for a luxury goods company, and you dealt a lot with dispute resolution in those areas. Tell us a little bit about it and what it means.
Thank you, Rudy. First and foremost, it's such a pleasure to see you virtually. Like you said, we haven't had a chance to get together. And I miss those interactions, especially at the annual meeting. Yeah, Rudy, I've been a GC in Dubai in the luxury sector, and at the same time, I was arbitrating cases. So I actually have a dispute resolution background, and I've worked in dispute resolution in private practice. I was heading up the dispute resolution section in a boutique firm in Dubai, and I had worked in the Dubai International Financial Center courts, which is the supervisory court over arbitrations with a seat in the DIFC. And when I moved in-house, it was with a very prominent luxury retailer. And of course, Dubai is synonymous with luxury. It is a global destination for retail. And, that opportunity to work as a GC and have that 360-degree view on this industry has just really shaped the type of work that I do. And, I bring all that knowledge with me when I'm arbitrating cases.
Well, you mentioned Dubai, but you really, through the entire UAE, United Arab Emirates. I mean, you covered the whole area.
Well, exactly. Retail is a very big pillar of the economy across the UAE. And, this is indicative by the number of, shopping festivals that go on, the amount of how important tourism and how that is linked with the retail market and industry as well.
Well, I've been to Dubai, and yes, there's a lot of luxury goods there, a lot of luxury items. And when I think of arbitration, I don't think necessarily in the world of luxury goods. I think in, business dealings, with companies. We do some arbitrations with some of our subsidiaries, but I don't think about arbitration with Gucci and Louis Vuitton or whatever, but they have the same issues we have, right? It's no different than any other contract dispute, supply chain dispute, trademark infringement. It's all those types of issues that you would find in any other type of case.
Well, Rudy, let's take a step back and kind of unpack that. So first of all, there are a lot of different concepts I want to talk us through. And one of them is, arbitration as a process, and, what it is to be in arbitration versus being in litigation, for example. So as you've said, arbitration is a creature of contract. It comes out of parties agreeing that they want to opt out of the court system for a different way to resolve a dispute. So
it's a creature of statute. I mean, a creature of contract. You
exactly.
have to agree. Yes.
Exactly. It's very much a party-driven process. Parties get to agree on this. So when you're, in that stage of getting into a contract, you would want to think about whether you want to resolve any dispute through arbitration. So let's park that for a second and kind of talk about a little bit about this industry. So the personal luxury goods industry was valued by Bain & Company to be around $300 billion for 2022.
Wow.
Exactly. And that number is only going up. And if you think about it, this is a huge industry, and there are all these relationships that is happening within this industry. And probably when we think about luxury, the first thing that comes to mind are the brand and the creatives, the manufacturer
Sure.
good.
The
But
Gucci, the Rolex.
the Rolex, the Patek, the different high jewelry brands, the bridge brands, the fashion brands, exactly. But there's also all of the suppliers that are involved. It's a vast ecosystem. So you have suppliers, you have you have all the people that are responsible for the logistics and transport and the insurers. You have all the IP rights holders. And don't forget, you have the consumers. And of course, all of the employees that work within this industry. So as you can see, if you take a step back and you think about all of these relationships, they are grounded in contract. And we know with our legal training that where there are contracts, there is the potential for a breach. And when a breach happens, then you have a dispute. And how you resolve your dispute is where arbitration comes into the picture. So,
Well, Ghada, you're opening up your arbitration practice in California, and you and I had a conversation yesterday. Is why would you say be a good fit for an arbitrator? You were a GC and you're an arbitrator. What perspective does that give you that say other arbitrators don't have? Because you have judges who become arbitrators, former litigators in law firms who become arbitrators. I know a few ACC colleagues who, like you, are GC and also do arbitration. What makes you specifically unique as somebody I'd want to select for an arbitration?
I think first and foremost, Rudy, I've been in the shoes of an end user. If we think about arbitration, arbitration is a process. It is a party-driven process, and you want to have an arbitrator or a panel of arbitrators that are guiding the parties through this process, that the arbitrator is responsible for the efficiency of the process and making sure that there is a solid roadmap that has been laid out and agreed to, and that the parties are sticking to it. The point of an arbitration is to get to a binding award, and to do that, it takes the parties and it takes the arbitrator working along that roadmap and making sure that we get through that process. So I think what having the experience and as a general counsel, that's a C-suite position. You've got this role within the business, and you are, you're on the pulse of business issues, and you see how much when you're in an arbitration that it's going to maybe take away time from other projects or other resources. There's a live impact for that decision. And having been in those shoes and knowing what I wanted and expected while I was a GC running arbitrations, I bring that into the practice and providing the service as an arbitrator from that perspective.
Well, you're looking at it from the client point of view because you were the client. And what does the client want? The client wants it to be done quickly, as economically as possible, right? Although, some litigation is always going to be costly, but not a situation where you have a situation where the arbitrator doesn't even consider the business needs of the units, right? Because companies live and die by the quarter, right? And they basically, if there's a dispute, that affects their bottom line. I think that's one of the things you understand about being an arbitrator.
So first and foremost, I would, in the position of a GC, I would be preaching dispute avoidance. And the other thing I would be doing is really working very closely with my business colleagues to have a strategy for what will we do if we do have a dispute. I think, being a general counsel and, my previous role taught me everything I know about relationships. Relationships are gold. But as we know, from time to time, things change. Something has to give. A problem emerges, and you need to be thinking what's the impact of that on my business? So a lot of this is front-loaded strategic type of decisions that have to take place. And I think it's so key and critical for business people to be involved in that decision. At the end of the day, they're the ones that hold the evidence that is going to be presented in a case. And I think more and more now, as arbitration has become a demonstrated effective tool in the toolbox of a party, that a lot of these decisions have to be talked about before a dispute happens. So first of all, dispute avoidance, and then as you are going into a contract, to be thinking through things like, what happens if we do run into a problem? How do we want to have that resolved? And arbitration is a very effective tool in that toolbox and in that strategy, because there you can decide, do I want to have 3 arbitrators or 1? What language do I want the dispute to be in? What is the governing law of the dispute? And so many other decisions that can be made.
Well, I think another thing that would make you a good arbitrator is the fact that you're multicultural. How many languages do you speak?
I speak 4 languages, so you're right. I really I really think that what has helped me become the arbitrator I am today is this opportunity to have worked in multiple jurisdictions. So I've lived and worked in different cultures and countries. And I think that is so important because, going back to what do the end users in arbitration, the parties, what do they want? I believe they want fairness and they want respect and they want to be understood. And having the ability to discern cultural nuances, I think puts parties at ease and helps everyone recognize that this arbitrator is here to allow both sides to get their case before the arbitrator, and that the arbitrator is focused on applying the law to the facts and doing that in a way that has removed any of these other type of cultural biases from the picture. And I think that puts parties at ease and gives parties an understanding that, this arbitrator gets it. There are different parts of the world, business gets done in different ways, and she's attuned to that and respects that.
But this is a very important point, Ghada, because people completely, not just in arbitration, but in the world of contract negotiation, in the world of business negotiation, you don't learn a language in a vacuum. When you know the language, you know the culture. And people oftentimes do not take the cultural aspects of the people they're dealing with in a deal, in a litigation, in an arbitration. And that's something, to me, that's very important to consider.
I agree. And, Rudy, you've got years and years and years of experience in this. And, taking that into account really matters. Being able to meet your counterparty where they are, I think is so important in those contract negotiations. And, from where I sit as an arbitrator, I have to be understanding that parties are dealing with things from a different perspective, perhaps based on, the nuances. So just having that awareness, I think, really puts people at ease. And that's just important throughout business.
And sometimes they just want to vent.
Well, I'm not gonna, well, again, there's some things that are better left for, our general counsel to really think about. And I've been in those shoes too.
Yeah, they just want to, they just want to vent. You also said yesterday that it's very easy to make the transition from arbitration, your world of luxury goods, into regular, not regular arbitration, but arbitration in other areas. And it is for people who are already arbitrators to go into that world. You can go this way, but you can't go that way.
Well, I think, Rudy, what I think is so important is that when you're in a dispute and you're one of these stakeholders that I've talked about, you're the brand creative, or you're the retailer, or you're the mall operator that is leasing that space. Within that ecosystem, I think it's really helpful when you've got an arbitrator that's already well versed in the lingo and really gets the industry from the inside. And I've been appointed as an arbitrator in real estate cases, construction disputes, in a wide variety of consumer cases, in a wide variety of commercial disputes. And when you're the party that's in this process, I think it's really important to be thinking about, what type of expertise does that arbitrator bring to the table? And I really draw quite a bit on that, luxury law background that I have. I was in luxury during an era of disruption. So, the word, if it was digital is the future, then it is certainly now. The future is now. So, we're talking about language like, I'll ask you, Rudy, when's the last time you used the word phygital? When's the last time you used greenwashing, NFT, crypto, the metaverse? And so, having that understanding of the dynamics of today, of e-commerce and omni-channel sales, and the amount of disputes that have increased by virtue of that disruption, I think is really something that is so important, because when we think about fashion and luxury, we want to remember the glamorous side. We don't want to really be thinking about what's happening kind of behind the scenes. But obviously, because of the nature of how all of these relationships are rooted in contract, there are disputes that happen, and arbitration is definitely a path and a tool within the toolbox to resolve those disputes.
Well, especially since you said it's gotten extremely complicated, much more. It's more than just sending luxury goods to a store, the person going in the store, buying the luxury goods and going home. It was now, with the technology the way it is, with the problems we've having with the wars, the pandemics, it's a much more complicated world than it was before, is what I'm getting from what you're saying.
Exactly. This is still an era of disruption within the luxury, the luxury universe. And these technological advancements, and I want to really point that out. The tech innovators are a very important player within this ecosystem. The amount of brands that have tied up in joint ventures with tech companies to be able to provide seamless delivery of goods and services to the consumers has really been a game changer. And in addition to that, we've seen a plethora of regulations. The regulatory side has really increased. I'm sitting in California. California has one of the strongest consumer protection regimes out there. in addition to data privacy. So, all of these changes have made it more complicated. The luxury personal goods industry is highly competitive, and these changes are going to continue to take shape as we go more and more into the new technologies.
Well, it's gotten more complicated, but is it still profitable? Because it seems to me that you have more of a market than you ever had before. Obviously, before, people had to physically go to the store. They knew the owner or the manager. They'd say, hey, I'm in Paris. I want that watch. Here's my card. Send it to me. But now it's online, and there are multiple people who are competing, and also more opportunities for fraud in people selling fake items for luxury items.
You're right. You're highlighting some of the, the areas that make it more and more competitive. And, I think, again, it highlights that, business people in this industry do not have a lot of time to waste if you do end up in a dispute. And you want to have that handled competently. You want to have it handled as confidentially as possible. And you want to be able to contain any of the impact of being in that dispute. So, the amount and the complexity has definitely increased. And the dynamics have changed. The definitions of luxury have changed. The consumer profile has changed, and the way in which the sales channels have definitely changed. And everything is really moving more and more digital.
It's unbelievable how it has changed, and lawyers have to adapt to it too. Now let's go on to why you're in the UAE with all this, the lap of luxury, and now you're in California. Why the transition?
As an arbitrator and an international arbitrator, for me, that is a term of real significance, and a lot of people throw that term around, or someone maybe considers that they dabble in international arbitration. For me, that's what makes me tick. I've worked and practiced in multiple jurisdictions. I've worked in Germany, I've worked in the UAE, and coming back to California, it really made sense because California is the 7th largest economy on its own within the world, and the fashion industry is a very important part of that. But more and more, as I was in that role as a GC, tech was coming into every aspect of how we do business. And it was important to me to be at that epicenter of tech and the drivers that are changing that landscape. And as well as I've said, California has set the bar for things like privacy regulations and consumer protection. And I felt like that was a very important place to be, and an important place to have a base in terms of an international commercial arbitration practice. So, of course, one of the great advantages of technology, and maybe one of the silver linings during the pandemic, was that we were able to conduct hearings and arbitration procedures virtually. So the technology has been there, but the speed in implementing it, I think, really accelerated during the pandemic. And that's brought the world a lot closer. So if you are, in the field of international arbitration, travel is part and parcel of it. And with our technology solutions, that I think has cut down some of the necessity for travel, and is a helpful tool in, again, speed, efficiency, and getting the parties through to the end of the process to a binding award.
Well, technology, is allowing us to talk right now.
That's
You're in
right.
California and I'm in Jacksonville. And the other day I had a hearing in Anguilla where I just got to my computer and had the hearing. Um, I would say that I would caution people in that don't go all the way towards technology, because as you talked about the personal relationships, those are still important. And so there's got to be a medium between the technology and the personal relationships. Um,
I think so. We could spend an entire, hour just talking about that. And I think that the most important thing and the key takeaway is that it's a tool, and it's an established tool. It's not anymore in beta. We've seen it. It's working. So that does give parties a lot of different options.
well, I think, but you still got to have that personal element. I mean, you can't escape that. And too many people are going, way the other way, but you do have the options that you can develop the relationship, you know, but it's very difficult to develop the relationship on Zoom or on Teams. There still has to be that way to meet, like you're going to Milan, for example, to the fashion festival. You can't Zoom that, right? You have to be there face to face with your potential clients.
No, I agree with you. That's right. The Milan Chamber of Arbitration is having their annual meeting on the 25th of November, and I will be I'll be taking part in that conference. And I hope to be able to bring back a lot of those takeaways from the conference to to the people who are really in this process and maybe considering arbitration, or maybe are already in a process now and need to appoint an arbitrator. So, that personal element is so important. And when we can't do that, then to rely on the virtual. And, Rudy, if maybe we can take a second, I can show people around my website. So
Absolutely.
contact me in that virtual way, and get to know me and see a little bit more about my experience. And that's an important tool, because we can't always be in person everywhere. So there I can go ahead and put that up if you want me to.
Sure. Go ahead and share the screen.
Oh, 1 second here.
It's technology.
I just put myself on the spot there. And that's so funny. Anyway, I want to put it up here in a second. And it's exactly what you don't want to happen in an arbitration proceeding. So let's leave it there. I'll put the link in the chat. There's just a lot going on in this short time that we have together.
Well, Ghada, if you're selected as an arbitrator, okay, what's the first thing you would do? I mean, I said we want to hire you. What's the first thing you would do?
Well, the selection process is, let me maybe walk you through that a little bit, Rudy. So first of all, parties can be thinking about an arbitrator much earlier on in the process, before there is even a dispute. And I think that's a really important time for that strategy to be had and be in shape. So, that's really driven by, in-house counsel and the business people that they're working hand in hand with. That in the anticipation of a dispute, we know how we want to go about dealing with this. And so parties are involved in appointing arbitrators. Institutions are also involved in appointing arbitrators. And arbitrators are then going to go through a vetting process, a disclosure process to make sure that impartiality is sanctified. So impartiality is one of the cornerstones of the process, and making sure that the arbitrator doesn't have any conflicts of interest. And then if this is an institutionally managed, an arbitration institution managed case, then the institution is going to take these steps to formally appoint the arbitrator, and the proceedings will then start. So there are those steps, but first and foremost is having a kind of a list of arbitrators that are going to be specialists in that area, that have the competency and can get the parties really through the process, is, I think, helpful to be thinking about well in advance of a dispute.
We have a question. And the question is, it's in Spanish, I'll translate to English. It's an industry where the global actors are so powerful that pressures exist. Is there a lot of pressure on the arbitrator when there's not the desequilibrio, there's no equilibrium between the parties in the conflict? Did you understand the question? I don't know if I was clear with it.
So kind of, I think what you're saying, if I can repeat the question, is if there's an inequality in the balance of power between two different parties, is there some kind of pressure that's on the arbitrator?
Yes. And because you're dealing with people who are very powerful, used to getting their way, is what I'm gleaning from this question. How do you deal with that as an arbitrator?
Well, again, first and foremost, it's the responsibility of the arbitrator to manage this process, and to set the ground rules for how this process is going to go. And again, it's a parties process, so the parties have quite a bit of say into the proceedings. It's an arbitrator is going to be sitting in that position of looking at and setting the roadmap for how to get to an award, and working with the parties to establish, the optimal level of, for example, discovery, the optimal level of motion practice tailored to that dispute. So that's really the benefit of having an arbitrator that's had a lot of experience from the procedural side of how to really manage the dispute.
I think the questions also glean towards, you've got people with, the way I'm understanding the question, you have people with incredible egos and are used to getting their way, and they want to put pressure on the arbitrator. Well, we're right, you better decide in our favor.
So, you've been through a lot of different, you've managed and
Oh, I've managed incredible egos my whole life, trust me.
You've had this opportunity, right, to be in the trenches and a lot of different types of whether it's in a litigation or at the negotiating table. I think, again, one of the skills that you get from being a general counsel is the ability to be a diplomat. So, drawing on that diplomacy, what it takes day in, day out to manage all of the different stakeholders that you're working with. When you're in-house, it's not like being at a law firm. You finish the call with your client, you put down the phone, and they're kind of out of your space. You finish a client meeting and the client goes home. But in an in-house setting, you're day in, day out with your clients. They are your internal business partners. And so you do develop an innate sense of diplomacy. And I think that's another skill that really, comes out during the arbitration process, is to be able to discern where you need to be firm and where you need to, allow things to flow.
It really becomes a juggling act. I've been in the same boat with people with incredible egos and, inequality of bargaining power. It is a juggling act for the arbitrator, even in a mediation. And you can either be confrontational or you can deflect. I did judo for many years, and for me, I learned how to deflect. And when somebody's being aggressive, I try to deflect that aggressive character and go back to them. What is it that you really want? I know what you're upset about, but what is it that you really want? What can you live with? I mean, there's all kinds of ways to deal with those people, and you each develop that skill depending on the environment in which you grew up.
I do believe we draw quite a bit on our, experiences. And I think that's, what parties are looking for. And when I was a general counsel, what I was looking for in an arbitrator, a person who has the, the substantive knowledge, the procedural knowledge, but also realizes at the end of the day, when we remove the names of companies and we remove the names of functions and titles, we're all individuals in that arbitration room. And the focus should be on, understanding, listening, allowing the parties to present their case, making sure that there's an equal time and ability for the parties to to ventilate their case and get everything out that they need to get out in order for the arbitrator to make that binding decision.
No, exactly. I think when you were a GC, what did you look for in an arbitrator? What were you looking for? What was like the two most important characteristics when you were a GC of what you were looking for in an arbitrator?
Right. So, I was, of course, looking for an arbitrator that could understand the substantive issues and had expertise. And I was looking for an arbitrator that had a great ability to manage the process. I think those are the two most important things.
Well, because arbitration is not always quick. You get an arbitrator that's super busy and it could take a while to get on his schedule or her schedule.
Exactly. That is such an important and key point, that you're going to want an arbitrator that's going to have the time and energy and effort to be able to put their eyes on your case and to treat your case as a individually. So, you really want to be able to work with an arbitrator that is available in that sense, that they're going to have the eyes on the case and treat it as as it's an individual issue, that it is not, something run of the mill, that this is, I think, so key and critical is, to really make sure that, your arbitrator is aware of the full aspect of the parties and has an understanding, has been in the shoes of an end user, that understands that there is a significant business impact for being in arbitration. That understanding on its own, I think, is a real add value.
We're having this conversation in English. Could you arbitrate in other languages?
So that's definitely something that I'm going to be able to do. I haven't had the opportunity to do so as of yet, but that is exactly, as I talk about being an international arbitrator, a very important element to what I would like to do in my career.
Can you, we have another question. That's when my eyes went to the right. It says, can you recommend a bibliography or some type of material that people can read to understand the industry?
That's a really good question. And a lot of there are a lot of, institutions that are really out there to support the understanding and knowledge of arbitration as a process. So if, for example, the IBA, the International Bar Association, puts out a lot of materials about arbitration. And there are a number of other organizations, the College of Commercial Arbitrators, the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. These are all very important institutions and organizations that really are there to support the arbitration process. If you take a look at the websites of different arbitration institutions, for example, the AAA, AAA has a very interesting and was one of the first to really have a consumer arbitration platform. And by just looking at the different websites, you can gather a lot of information. I can also give you my email. I'm Ghada@gqaudi.com. You can go to my website, gqaudi.com, and there's different information there, and I want to continue to build that out.
Speaking of your website, I am, where is it here? I am sharing your website now.
Okay, excellent. So, I talked a little bit about my experience, but, this website is really the starting point to get to know me. And, that's where you'll be able to get more information about my background, my thought leadership, as well as my philosophy as an arbitrator. And, for parties that are new to the arbitration process, you can click onto my request my CV by clicking a button, and your counsel can get in touch and begin that process, especially if for parties who are in the need of appointing an arbitrator. So we've said technology makes these steps a lot easier and simplifies it. So this is the best way to reach me and get in touch.
Well, your website, I don't know if people can see it. You speak English, Arabic, German, and Spanish.
That's right. And that comes out of all the years that I've lived and studied abroad and worked abroad and pursued foreign language training.
To me, that's the most important. The ability, to me, what's really important is what I think is a really great value, in addition to all your other, academic achievements and capabilities, is that cultural aspect. You can be the smartest guy in the room, but if you don't have the culture, everything can be a failure. If you don't understand the culture, it could be a failure. And that, to me, is very, very key.
Well, again, I think we've really been talking about it here. Business really runs on relationships and contact between individuals, and the amazing diversity across our world and the way that the world connects through business, I think has just always inspired me to, try and do as much as I can to understand another person from where they're coming from. And I think that's just, for me, very important to my life. That's who I am.
Exactly. The other question we have, I think, well, there was a clarification, that is, the industry that person was referring to was the fashion industry. If you want to learn about the fashion industry, do you want to, are there any material they can read?
Yes, actually, that's thank you for that clarification. Yes, there are again a number of nonprofit organizations and institutions around the fashion industry that provide an incredible resource in terms of, understanding what we started to talk about here. If you have some specific questions, if anyone who's watching this to please contact me, and I'll try to point them in the right direction.
And one final question we have here is, have you ever been involved in an arbitration with a maquiladora? Maquiladora are those factories in Mexico that US or foreign entities set up. They have special tax privileges. I'm sure you've heard of those.
No, I don't think that I could say I have.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I think we're about ready to close. Thank you so much, Ghada, for agreeing to do the interview. I'm excited that you're opening your office in California. I strongly recommend that people contact you and just they can see how great you are, how very experienced you are in this area. I think you do bring a lot to the table as an arbitrator. So thank you so much. It was good talking to you, and everyone, thank you for being on my YouTube channel. It's been a great experience having Ghada here, and I look for my other guests coming soon. I've got a few more. Thank you, everybody. It's great having you.
Thank you, Rudy. It's been a pleasure. I've appreciated the conversation and our exchange here today, and I'll see you later.
Don't forget, you are watching Conversations with Rudy Rivera.